Good morning. This is the Great Basin Smoke Dispersion Briefing for Friday, February 1st. Looking at precipitation of the past 7 days, quite dry across the Great Basin, hardly any precipitation at all. However, that's not the case over the past 14 days. Quite a wet pattern across just about all areas. Had significant wetting rains, and a lot of that in the middle to higher elevations was in the form of snowfall. No new snowfall in the past 72 hours, but you can see on the right-hand side the snowpack quite extensive, where you stretch from the Sierra, the higher terrain of the mountains of central Idaho, into the Tetons, and into a good portion of Utah and the higher elevations of Nevada as well. Even down into Arizona, snowpacks pretty much at normal early February levels, so a lot more extensive than at this time last year. Satellite imagery shows a pretty progressive pattern with a weak ridge of high pressure very quickly breaking down, and a very powerful and moist storm system now approaching the west coast. This storm system will affect the Great Basin from late today through the weekend into the early part of next week. So the good news is, with that storminess, good air quality, good dispersion in most areas. However, with the widespread wet weather expected, burning forested areas will be a challenge. Pile burns may be more viable. So looking at today, the upper level map on the left, a very extensive area of moisture from the Pacific Northwest all the way down to south of Baja and into the tropical Pacific. This is a lot of subtropical moisture. We call these atmospheric rivers, typically bring moist conditions, especially to our southern areas. Dispersion overall on the right-hand side, best where you see the white and yellow areas. If we look at the transport winds, they'll start picking up across Nevada from the south today, lighter across the eastern portions of the Great Basin. On the right-hand side, mixing heights, still relatively low across the Utah and much of the eastern Great Basin, but they improve as you head further west, closer to that storm. On Saturday, the storm system moves onshore. Widespread rains and mountain snows. Snow levels initially quite high, probably 7,000 feet or higher in a lot of locations. On the right-hand side is the overall dispersion. Again, maybe some limitations just basically based on cloud cover, but otherwise a combination of strong winds, as seen here on the transport winds on the left-hand side, should overcome any limited mixing vertically that is suppressed by cloud cover and precipitation. On Sunday, still continue with the moisture across Idaho and far northern areas into Wyoming. A brief drying trend across southern areas, but there's still deep low pressure off the Pacific Northwest. Notice how excellent the dispersion is. Lots of white on the map, very little in the way of purple other than some localized areas. These are the transport winds, quite strong. The dark browns are speeds that are basically approaching 50 miles per hour at the transport level, but overall good winds everywhere, good vertical mixing on the right-hand side. Locally, the Utah Clearing Index shows a gradual improving trend as you go from Friday through Sunday with that low pressure. 3-day precipitation amounts in the higher terrain, those areas of blue shades, you have anywhere from a ½ inch to 1.5 inches, and some locally higher amounts. So overall, another wet pattern. And on Monday, the storminess continues. Low pressure off the southern Oregon coast. Lots of wind, as you see by these tight packing of these height lines. Precipitation continues, especially across Idaho and parts of Utah. Excellent overall dispersion on the right-hand side. We continue with a very similar pattern on Tuesday. Excellent dispersion, still in the vicinity of low pressure, but still some wetness around. By Wednesday, most of the moisture exits. Low pressure is right over us, so still excellent ventilation or dispersion on the right-hand side. And into Thursday, still that fast flow continues. Some moisture coming into Idaho. Again, they never really quite dry out there in Idaho and western Wyoming through the whole 7-day period. We do see drying across much of Nevada, Utah, and the Arizona Strip, but overall good overall dispersion, as you can see through here, with winds becoming more northerly or northwesterly with time. These are precipitation amounts as we go from Monday night through Wednesday night, and that'll be another wave that you can see continues with another anywhere from a ½ inch to over 1 inch of precipitation, highest amounts in those various blue shades. And the 8 to 14 day outlook shows a cooler than normal signal here temperature-wise across most of the Great Basin. Also wetter than normal signal, especially for the southern two-thirds of the Great Basin. So the cool, moist pattern continues. This will be February 8th through the 14th. This concludes our dispersion briefing. Next one will be issued this coming Monday. We continue now post shutdown with Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays with our dispersion briefings. Have a great weekend.